You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Hey, it's Ian Ballinger from the Freestater here on the Lanterns Radio Network. Now, most people listen to the show when it goes up every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Time on Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, or even on your iPhone podcast app. But you can also listen to the show over at lanterns.buzz. That's lanterns.buzz, where the show plays on replay every weekday and weekend at 11 a.m. Central Time. Every day throughout the week, you can listen to the replay of the show on the lanterns.buzz radio stream. Aha! 11 a.m. Central Time and 3 a.m. in the morning. Just fantastic times. If you're driving out late, you can listen to the show. And if you're waking up in the morning, driving to work, going to lunch during work, whatever, show's available for you to listen to right there on replay. That's lanterns.buzz. And while you're over there, I encourage you to check out some of the other great shows that the Lanterns Radio Network has to offer. You've got Bells of Liberty, Todd Huff Radio, Battle for Freedom, Patriot Politics, Defenders of American Exceptionalism, The HoloNet, Fires of Liberty, Battlefield Live, The Conservative Syndicate, and many other special programs. You may have heard back during CPAC even, they did a huge live stream, continuous coverage of CPAC. Go to lanterns.buzz for great content. We're here to fix the machine. Lanterns.buzz. The world's gone mad. This is the Freestater. True conservatism, constitutionalism, may be in the minority now when it comes to the dialogue on political affiliation. But that doesn't mean we stop fighting. We fight for principles over party, values over politicians, and truth over feelings. You've entered a state of freedom. This is the Freestater.
Good morning this morning here from the beautiful weather studios of Ballinger Broadcasting from Lawrence, Kansas. It is 76 degrees and sunny in Los Angeles. Clouds, then sun throughout the day. 81 degrees will be your high. In New York City, New York, 78 degrees throughout the day. A possible shower or thunderstorm in the PM hours of your day. In Dallas, Texas, 77 degrees and cloudy with a thunderstorm or two throughout the day. And 100% chance of the apocalypse because Donald Trump just pulled out of the Paris Accord. This from The Blaze by Sarah Taylor. President Donald Trump announced his decision to withdraw the United States from the Paris Accord on Thursday, after much speculation that the president would do just that. In an address from the White House's Rose Garden, Trump decried those laughing at America. He asked, at what point does America get demeaned? At what point do they start laughing at us as a country? Trump demanded, we want fair treatment. We don't want other countries and other leaders to laugh at us anymore. Though the lead-up to his decision was widely criticized, even by daughter Ivanka Trump,
who purportedly lobbied to remain in the accord, Trump did not back down on his stance that America comes first. I was elected by the citizens of Pittsburgh, Trump said, not Paris. We're getting out, and we will start to renegotiate, and we'll see if there's a better deal. If we can, great. And if we can't, that's fine, he said. The Paris Accord, a climate agreement, was open for signature on Earth Day 2016, and to date, representatives of 195 countries worldwide have signed the accord, and the agreement went into effect in November 2016. The accord addresses and analyzes greenhouse gas emissions and is set to, quote, combat climate change and adapt to its effects. That article from theblaze.com by Sarah Taylor. I encourage you to go to theblaze.com and read the full article for yourself, as well as watch President Trump's address regarding the Paris Accord on YouTube at www.youtube.com at their White House YouTube channel.
Climate Accord is simply the latest example of Washington entering into an agreement that disadvantages the United States. As president, I have one obligation, and that obligation is to the American people. The Paris Accord would undermine our economy, hamstring our workers, weaken our sovereignty, impose unacceptable legal risk, and put us at a permanent disadvantage to the other countries of the world. It is time to exit the Paris Accord and time to pursue a new deal that protects the environment, our companies, our citizens, and our country. It is time to put Youngstown, Ohio, Detroit, Michigan, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania before Paris, France. It is time to make America great again.
So that was Trump's, that's the video the White House released the day after. They actually released it on their YouTube channel 1 hour ago. To mixed reactions. Let's pause that real quick. The video on YouTube currently sits at 604 likes and 221 dislikes. Mixed reaction, more positive than I actually anticipated it being. A lot of commenters on YouTube saying Americanism, not globalism. This guy, I haven't seen Democrats this mad since Abe Lincoln took away their slaves. Well done for getting us out of this terrible agreement, one commenter said. God bless Mr. Trump, best decision ever. And then some other comments saying some men just want to watch the world burn. Here's the truth about global warming. If it is natural, pain, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. The people, mixed reaction. Twitter was aflame. You had people like Leonardo DiCaprio saying how ashamed he is due to the agreement, and even more interesting, the mayor of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, after Trump invokes Pittsburgh, saying, I was elected by the people of Pittsburgh, not Paris, tweets on Twitter, as the mayor of Pittsburgh, quote, I can assure you that we will follow the guidelines of the Paris Agreement for our people, our economy, and our future. That was tweeted again by the mayor of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Bill Peduto. Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, said, if Washington won't act, New Yorkers will. We've set bold renewable energy goals and will invest in a sustainable future. Hashtag Paris Agreement. That's what he said. We're building offshore wind projects to power 1.25 million homes by 2030, the largest commitment in U.S. history. That was, again, tweeted by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. In fact, many New York monuments, the One World Trade Center, as an example, lit up green in support of the Paris Agreement. Because, of course, our culture today is all about virtue signaling, and it isn't about real discussion or real change. Virtue signal, that's the modern American way. Would the Paris Climate Agreement even do anything? Prager University seems to disagree here in this YouTube video they put up in January 2016. Take a listen.
Much has been made of the Paris Climate Agreement, signed by the leaders of 178 countries in 2016. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius, speaking for many, called it a historic turning point. The head of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Gina McCarthy, echoed the minister's remark when she testified before the House Committee on Science, Space and Technology. The Paris Agreement was, she said, an incredible achievement. But when pressed by committee members to explain exactly how much this treaty would reduce global temperatures, she would not, or could not, say. This combination of grand pronouncements and vague specifics is a good strategy for Paris Agreement fans to take, because the agreement will cost a fortune but do little to reduce global warming. Consider the Obama administration's signature climate policy, the Clean Power Plan. Using the same climate prediction model that the UN uses, I found that the power plan will accomplish almost nothing. Even if its cuts to carbon dioxide emissions are fully implemented, not just for the 14 years that the Paris Agreement lasts, but for the rest of the century, the Clean Power Plan would reduce the temperature increase in 2100 by just 0.023 degrees Fahrenheit. The President has made further and grander promises of future U.S. carbon cuts, but these are only vaguely outlined. In the unlikely event that all of these extra cuts also happen and are adhered to throughout the rest of the century, the combined reduction in temperatures would be 0.057 degrees. To put it another way, if the U.S. delivers for the whole century on the President's very ambitious rhetoric, it would postpone global warming by about 8 months at the end of the century. Now, let's add in the rest of the world's Paris promises. If we generously assume that the promised carbon cuts for 2030 are not only met, which itself would be a UN first, but sustained throughout the rest of the century, temperatures in 2100 would drop by 0.3 degrees, the equivalent of postponing warming by less than 4 years. Again, that's using the UN's own climate prediction model. But here's the biggest problem. These minuscule benefits do not come free. Quite the contrary. The cost of the Paris Climate Pact is likely to run to $1 to $2 trillion every year, based on estimates produced by the Stanford Energy Modeling Forum and the Asia Modeling Exercise. In other words, we will spend at least $100 trillion in order to reduce the temperature by the end of the century by a grand total of 0.3 degree. Some Paris Agreement supporters defend it by claiming that its real impact on temperatures will be much more significant than the UN model predicts. But this requires mental gymnastics and heroic assumptions. The Climate Action Tracker, widely cited by Paris Agreement fans, predict a temperature reduction of 1.6 degrees Fahrenheit by the end of the century. But this prediction is based very heavily on the assumption that even stronger climate policies will be adopted in the future. Actually, 98% of the assumed reductions will come only after 2030, which is what the current Paris Agreement covers. And even such wishful thinking won't achieve anything close to the 2 degrees Celsius reduction that has become the somewhat arbitrary but widely adopted benchmark to avoid the worst effects of global warming. The actual promised emission reductions under the Paris Agreement literally gets us just 1% of the way to the 2 degrees target. 99% of what would be required is put off until after 2030. The Paris Agreement is the wrong solution to a real problem. The right solution will most likely be found through green energy research and development, like that promoted by Bill Gates and the Breakthrough Coalition. Mr. Gates has announced that private investors are committing $7 billion for clean energy R&D. Instead of political hot air and ever larger government subsidies of today's inefficient green technologies, those who want to combat climate change should focus on dramatically boosting green energy innovation. The U.S. already shows the way. With its pursuit of fracking, making it safer and more efficient every year, America has drastically reduced the cost of natural gas. This momentous switch from coal to lower CO2 gas as a source of energy has done far more to drive down carbon dioxide emissions than any recent government climate policy. Turns out that those politicians who gathered in Paris, France, could learn a lot from Paris, Texas.
Yeah, see, but they never will because that's not part of the agenda. What I find the most disturbing about the Paris Climate Agreement is the reaction from other countries. Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, shaming the United States and responding to Trump's pulling out of the agreement by saying, "Make our planet great again." Of course, the left absolutely praised Macron. Oh, he used Donald Trump's own words against him. Instead of saying, "Make America great again," he said, "Make the planet great again." What a genius. He totally got that Trump. Or Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, saying that he was deeply disappointed that the United States has decided to withdraw from the Paris Agreement. Canada is unwavering in our commitment to fight climate change and support clean economic growth. Canadians know we need to take decisive and collective action to tackle the many harsh realities of our changing climate. Trudeau said that the U.S. decision is disappointing. There's a lot disappointing about you, Justin. A lot disappointing about you.
Do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors. So help me God. Her heirs, her heirs, her heirs.
We have to rethink elements as basic as space and time.
Please finish the following sentence. If elected, my first full day as Prime Minister, I would...
Why are your deficits good and their deficits bad?
Well, deficits are a way of measuring the kind of growth and the kind of success that a government is actually able to create. We're going to put out a properly costed platform once we've announced all our promises. And if you want to tabulate them, you can go on our website and do that. I'm more focused on actually talking about what we're going to do right away for Canadians than sitting there with a...
Canada has always done.
That's a difficult one. But ultimately, I think I might have to go with Hulk.
I actually have for China, because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say we need to go green as fast as we need to start, investing in solar. I mean, there is a flexibility that.
Okay, so now we're changing. We're praising China's dictatorship. Okay.
There are other things that Canada could do that other countries wouldn't be able to do just as well. Whether it's our expertise around humanitarian aid and around refugee status, there's a lot of people. Refugees, displaced people fleeing violence who are facing a very, very cold winter in the mountains. If something Canada has expertise on is how to face a winter in the mountains with the right kind of equipment. Rather than, trying to whip out our CF-18s and show them how big they are. But there is no question that this happened because there is someone who feels completely excluded, completely...
The Liberal Party believes that terrorists should get to keep their Canadian citizenship. Because I do.
And I'm willing to take on anyone who disagrees with that.
We believe that terrorists should get to keep their citizenship. That's who you pick, Canada. So no, you don't get to sit in your great white north and your beautiful lakes and mountains and say, we are disappointed in you, United States, for pulling out of this crappy Paris Agreement. No, Canada. We're disappointed in you picking that.
if you don't want to bomb a group as ghastly as ISIS, when would you ever support real military action as opposed to just training?
Terry, that's a nonsensical question.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
For several years, ISIS has invaded peaceful communities in the Middle East and painted. Hey everyone, we do not have sponsors, and by we, I mean me. I don't have any sponsors. So I want to take this time to tell you about some projects that are always at the top of my list and in the back of my mind. They're fantastic projects. The NazareneFund.org. For several years, ISIS has invaded peaceful communities in the Middle East and painted the Nazarene symbol on the door of people they seek to convert, extort, or murder. While ISIS uses the Nazarene symbol to symbolize death, we use it to symbolize life. Mercury One is a U.S.-based humanitarian aid and education nonprofit organization that established and administers the Nazarene Fund. The Nazarene Fund aids in the restoration of Christians and other persecuted religious minorities in their communities who have been targeted by ISIS for their faith. I want to make it clear, I am not endorsed by Mercury One. They have not paid me to say any of this, and I'm not directly affiliated with them in any way. Be that as it may, I think that what they're doing is extremely important, and I want to share it with you. So rather than push a sponsor for you right now, in large part because I don't have one, I want to share their mission with you and direct you to where you can go to help. Now, in 2014, the Christian community in Syria and Iraq were facing the greatest calamity in its 2,000-year history. The Islamic State, ISIS, exploded out of Raqqa, Syria, the capital of its self-proclaimed Islamic State. In a lightning strike that surprised the world, ISIS forces captured Mosul, Iraq's second-largest city, and all of nearby Nineveh plain, the traditional homeland of the region's Christian community. What followed was a campaign of extortion, murder, and displacement not only of the Christians, but of other ethno-religious minorities in the region. By 2015, a population of 3 million people was reduced to only 300,000. Most of them displaced from their homes and fleeing to other countries. In August of that year, Glenn Beck took the stage, and the Restoring Unity rally in Birmingham, Alabama, declared the situation for it was genocide. Mercury One donors immediately responded, and the Nazarene Fund was launched with the goal of rescuing 400 families. No one at the time that realized that a movement was born, and over the course of the next 18 months, Mercury One has far exceeded its original goal, and the numbers speak for themselves. 1,290 families rescued, 5,202 people saved. Fortunately, the tactical situation is changing. Coalition forces have liberated most of Nineveh. Mosul will soon be under Allied control. An attack on Raqqa is imminent, and Mercury One is shifting its focus from rescuing to rebuilding and restoring the lives and communities of these persecuted people. We're so happy to shift this focus from providing immediate basic care for individuals to rebuilding and restoring communities by funding projects that will have a future impact on health and education for years to come. Mercury One funded projects include a medical clinic in Lebanon, a medical clinic in Greece, school in Beirut, Lebanon, a school in Athens, Greece, a mobile trauma center in Acre, Iraq, a trauma center in Al-Qush, Iraq, a community center in Nitra, Slovakia, and a transport van in Brazil. As their mission continues to evolve both internationally and at home, please continue to support all of Mercury One's efforts by donating now. To donate, go to mercuryone.org or thenazarenefund.org. It's a great cause. They need your help. If you're able to donate, I encourage you to donate. I encourage you to go, again, thenazarenefund.org, and donate if you can. God bless. Laus Deo. I want to talk to you about the 912 Project. Now, this is something we've discussed on the show a lot. And I mean a lot, and it's something we're going to discuss on the show a lot more. At the origin of America, our founding fathers built this country on 28 powerful principles. These principles were culled from all over the world and from centuries of great thinkers. We've distilled the original 28 down to 9 basic principles. And if you believe in at least 7 of them, then we have something in common. They've also added 12 values that represent the qualities of those who founded our country. If we can all live by these, we believe America can get back on course again. Now, their advisory board consists of some amazing conservatives and amazing people. Yvonne Donnelly, Maria Acosta, Michael Pelka from The Blaze, Stephanie Scruggs, Mimi Steele, Aaron Wilson, Jason Roberts from NetFusion Studios. All these people promoting the 912 Project, and I encourage you, this valued listener that we have here on the Lanterns Radio Network, to go to the 912-project.com to find these principles and values on their webpage. Share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter. We're trying to start the 912 movement again. At least I am. And again, I want to make it clear, not endorsed by these, but by this organization. I am not sponsored by them, but I believe that their mission is important. And what is their mission? The 912 Project is a volunteer-based, nonpartisan movement focusing on building and uniting our communities back to the place we were on September 12th, 2001, the day after America was attacked. The day after America was attacked, we were not obsessed with political parties, the color of skin, or what religion you practiced. We were united as Americans, standing together to protect the greatest nation ever created. Our goal is to bring us back to that same feeling of togetherness again. Our mission is to inspire individuals to connect with their communities through education, service, and dedication to the 9 principles and the 12 values to which we have committed. To find these principles and values, go to the 912project.com. That's the 912-project.com. The 912-project.com.
So I think very few people would argue that there is some form of climate change that exists. There are a lot of conservatives that would acknowledge that. I think the hang-up for the so-called quote-unquote climate change deniers, as we are branded by the mainstream and leftist media and groups throughout the country, is that, is it caused by human beings? Is it really caused due to human beings? And 2, if it is there really anything we can do about it? As we saw in that last video we played from Prager University, this Paris Climate Agreement won't really do anything. You won't see those effects until 2100. And even then, it's minuscule. It's minuscule. It's so it's almost laughable. It's such a bad agreement. It's almost laughable. So our climate has been and will always be changing. But is it really a human-caused disaster? Is it really a man-made issue? Many on the right don't think so. Bjorn Lomborg is the director of the Copenhagen Consensus Center. And he gives his take from this PragerU video right now.
Carbon emissions are rising, and faster than most scientists predicted. But many climate change alarmists seem to claim that all climate change is worse than expected. This ignores that much of the data is actually more encouraging than expected. Yes, Arctic sea ice is melting faster than models expected, but models also predicted that Antarctic sea ice would decrease, yet Antarctic sea ice is increasing. Yes, sea levels are rising, but the rise is not accelerating. If anything, two recent papers, one by Chinese scientists published in January 2014 and the other by U.S. scientists published in May 2013, have shown a small decline in the rate of sea level increase. We're often being told that we're seeing more and more droughts, but a study published in March 2014 in the journal Nature actually shows a decrease in the world's surface that has been afflicted by droughts since 1982. Facts like these are important because a one-sided focus on worst-case stories is a poor foundation for sound policies. Hurricanes are likewise used as an example of things getting worse. But look at the U.S., where we have the best statistics. If we adjust for population and wealth, hurricane damage during the period of 1900 to 2013 actually decreased slightly. At the UN Climate Conference in Lima, Peru, in December 2014, attendees were told that their country should cut carbon emissions to avoid future damage from storms like Typhoon Hagupit, which hit the Philippines during the conference, killing at least 21 people and forcing more than 1 million into shelters. Yet the trend for strong typhoons around the Philippines have actually declined since 1950, according to a study published in 2012 by the Journal of Climate. Again, we're told that all things are getting worse, but the facts don't support this. This does not mean global warming is not real or a problem, but the one-sided story of alarmism makes us lose focus. If we want to help the world's poor, who are the most threatened by natural disasters, it's less about cutting carbon emissions than it is about pulling them out of poverty. The best way to see this is to look at the world's death from natural disasters over time. In the Oxford University...
He makes a good point there about pulling people out of poverty, and that's what you should be focusing on instead of something that you can't necessarily affect, at least not to the level that the leftist media and the mainstream media and leftist politicians or want you to believe. But we know that the left doesn't care about the poor, or at least doesn't have a very high opinion of people stuck in poverty. Well, look what happened with that whole Ben Carson deal, where Ben Carson said that if you're in poverty, it's a state of mind. The left took that as, oh, you don't care about people who are impoverished. He obviously meant. And he even had to explain himself that if you're in poverty, you're more than capable of pulling yourself out of poverty. The left doesn't want you to believe that. They want that reliance on the government. Anyway, let's continue.
University database for death rates from floods, extreme temperatures, droughts, and storms, the average in the first part of last century was more than 130 dead every year per million people. Since then, the death rates have dropped 97% to a new low in the 2010s of less than 4 per million. The dramatic decline is mostly due to economic developments that help nations withstand catastrophes. If you're rich like Florida, a major hurricane might cause plenty of damage to expensive buildings, but it kills few people and causes only a temporary dent in economic output. If a similar hurricane hits a poorer country like the Philippines or Guatemala, it kills many more people and can devastate the economy. So let's be clear, climate change is not worse than we thought. That doesn't mean it's not a reality or not a problem. It is. But the narrative that the world's climate is changing from bad to worse is unhelpful alarmism that prevent us from focusing on smart solutions. A well-meaning environmentalist might argue that because climate change is a reality, why not ramp up the rhetoric and focus on the bad news to make sure the public understands its importance? But that's exactly what we've done for the past 20 years. Yet, despite dramatic headlines, apocalyptic documentaries, and annual climate summits, carbon emissions continue to rise, especially in rapidly developing countries like India, China, and many African nations. Alarmism has encouraged the pursuit of a one-sided climate policy of trying to cut carbon emissions by subsidizing wind farms and solar panels. Yet today, according to the International Energy Agency, only about 0.4% of global energy consumption comes from solar photovoltaics and windmills. And even with exceptionally optimistic assumptions about future deployment of wind and solar, the International Energy Agency expects that these energy forms will provide a minuscule 2.2% of the world's energy by 2040. In other words, for at least the next 2 decades, solar and wind energy are simply expensive, feel-good measures that will have an imperceptible climate impact. Instead, we should focus on investing in research and development of green energy to lower its costs. So everyone will want it, including China and India. We urgently need a more balanced climate conversation if we ought to make sensible choices and pick the right climate policy that can actually help fix climate change. I'm Bjorn Lomborg, president of the Copenhagen Consensus Center.
And he brings up another good point there. We may disagree on some things, but anyway, that leftists, especially on college campuses, something I've noticed, use alarmism to their advantage. College kids want to be a part of something. And so, for example, using alarmism as an example, you see that a lot with Antifa. Oh, you're fighting the Nazis. Fighting the Nazis. They actually believe they're fighting Nazis. It's that alarmist mentality that this is actually a real thing and we actually have to fight against it. And using violence or coercion politically is morally okay, not reprehensible at all, because the ends justify the means. That's what you can gather from this. That's what you can gather from the modern-day left. In fact, it's funny, we're talking about that. You see that alarmist mentality, and you see college leftists going out and rioting in the streets. It's funny, because conservatives are usually the ones being called the alarmists. You remember when people called Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck fearmongers? You can't really say that anymore. Especially now, the Campus Reform Group did a video, and in that video, very few people could name a time where they remember conservatives going out and rioting. Let's take a listen. From Campus Reform, campusreform.com.
So we've seen a lot of protests, many times violent protests that have been going on college campuses, and usually it's when conservative speakers are coming to speak. So we have a quick 30-second video that we're going to play for you, kind of a little compilation of the different protests, and we're going to get your opinion on it after.
That they made, for lack of a better term, and got intense. People started moving back.
Here we go.
These are some of the riots that we've just seen this year alone, specifically towards conservative speakers on college campuses.
Can you think of a time where conservative students were rioting because of a liberal speaker on campus? Not off the top of my head.
No, yeah, that's not as common. I don't think
Not
so.
common.
Yeah.
Not any cases I've heard of.
Can you think of any instances where you've seen conservatives protesting in that way, trying to shut down liberal speakers?
Never.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything like that.
One's not coming to mind.
Yeah, I can't really think of any either, to be honest.
They're preaching tolerance, yet they're intolerant.
I think a lot of that starts with the disproportionate volume of a liberal and progressive professors.
Nobody's listening. Everyone's screaming and no one's listening.
Not how it should be handled. A lot of people say they're open to other opinions, but they're really not.
Most of them don't even know what they're protesting. If you ask them, they don't know.
On liberal college campuses, I could see more conservative ideas. People are a little more shy or hesitant to vocalize those because it is strength in numbers.
I definitely do think they're being silenced because they're not welcome, I think, on campus. I mean, I've personally experienced that where I go to school.
I think that people should be able to speak wherever they want.
I find it kind of ironic that, the liberal side claims, anti-hate speech, and then they're out doing things that are kind of counterproductive to their whole movement.
And bringing up another point, this article from theblaze.com, the article is by Brandon Morse. Encourage you to go there and read the full article in full. But I want to point out this excerpt from it. A study by the Young America's Foundation examining bias on college campuses showed that the top 100 colleges in the United States, of the top 100 colleges in the United States, 45 invited left-leaning personalities to give commencement speeches, while only 4 conservative-leaning individuals were invited to speak. When conservative-leaning speakers do take the podium to address students, they're often interrupted or disrespected. In early May, Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos was booed loudly by students and faculty at Bethune-Cookman University while she was giving a commencement address. When Vice President Mike Pence delivered the commencement address at Notre Dame University in late May, several students protested by getting up and walking out while he was speaking. Now, no one on Campus Reform's video report could recall an incident when conservatives resorted to violence against leftist speech. That's because, my personal opinion, I feel like it's backed up by the video evidence we've seen of leftists protesting conservative speakers, where leftists will say that they don't care about free speech, or they'll use free speech to justify what they're doing, but then continue to fight against free speech. I think the reason you don't see conservative speakers resorting to violence against leftists speaking on campus is because conservatives are the advocates for free speech, not just on college campuses, but throughout the world. Name me a conservative speaker that advocates against freedom of expression. Here's the thing about leftism, right? In their world, you do not exist. In their world, you do not have a right to speak out of turn. In our world, in the free speech advocates' world, they have a right to exist. They have a right to their beliefs, and they have a right to exist. We're polar opposites on what we believe. And yet the free speech advocates, the libertarians, the conservatives advocating for free speech on college campuses do not want to get rid of leftists on college campuses, do not want to get rid of people who disagree with their viewpoints on climate change, do not want to exterminate these people. The people on the left, the people on the modern day left, the social justice left, does. They want to silence you. And no matter how much they scream and kick and act upset, do not let them.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Hey, it's Ian Ballinger from the Freestater here on the Lanterns Radio Network. Now, most people listen to the show when it goes up every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Time on Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, or even on your iPhone podcast app. But you can also listen to the show over at lanterns.buzz. That's lanterns.buzz, where the show plays on replay every weekday and weekend at 11 a.m. Central Time. Every day throughout the week, you can listen to the replay of the show on the lanterns.buzz radio stream. Aha! 11 a.m. Central Time and 3 a.m. in the morning. Just fantastic times. If you're driving out late, you can listen to the show. And if you're waking up in the morning, driving to work, going to lunch during work, whatever, show's available for you to listen to right there on replay. That's lanterns.buzz. And while you're over there, I encourage you to check out some of the other great shows that the Lanterns Radio Network has to offer. You've got Bells of Liberty, Todd Huff Radio, Battle for Freedom, Patriot Politics, Defenders of American Exceptionalism, The HollowNet, Fires of Liberty, Battlefield Live, The Conservative Syndicate, and many other special programs. You may have heard back during CPAC even, they did a huge live stream, continuous coverage of CPAC. Go to lanterns.buzz for great content. We're here to fix the machine. Lanterns.buzz.
Welcome, Kmart shoppers. Kmart has low discount prescription prices. Visit our pharmacist today and compare our prices to what you're presently paying elsewhere.
You'll be glad you did.
Griffin lifted a bloodied and detached replica of President Donald Trump's head for a recent photo shoot, a move she jokingly said could land her in hot water. This is fake blood, just so you know, Griffin said at the start of the 1-minute clip. In fact, we'll just play the clip for you. The clip is courtesy of TMZ.
My name is Kathy Griffin. I'm shooting with Tyler Shields, who is wildly talented. This is fake blood, just so you know. I won't give away what we're doing, but Tyler and I are not afraid to do images that make noise. And also, he often lights me to the point where I look about 15. But first, I'm an artist. But really, it's good lighting.
I just wonder, I like the hair better before or after.
With all the blood?
Yeah, I think it's kind of better.
More
right at that. There you go.
Okay.
Just like that.
You got it. Come on.
Right?
Yeah. We're going to go to... We have to move to Mexico today. Because we're going to go to prison. Federal prison.
Yeah.
Call your dad. Apologize. You, me, and Daryl just go to Mexico today.
Okay, so it's kind of a quiet video. If you didn't hear, we have to leave for Mexico today. Griffin jokingly said to the photographer, because we're going to federal prison, let's leave for Mexico today because we're not surviving this. Okay. My stance on it. It's tasteless. It's not funny. It's bad art. Fine, you're an artist. That's what she said. I'm an artist first. Fine, whatever. Or I think whatever. Fine. You're a bad artist. Your art is subject to critique. You're a bad artist. It's a bad piece. It's tasteless. It's not funny. You have every right to do it, though. I support your right to do it. We're not North Korea, where we can't criticize our leaders. But is it possible, just thinking out loud here, that this could go beyond criticism of our leaders? Is she advocating for violence against Republicans or against President Trump? It wasn't taken as a joke by his children. A report came out the other day that said that Barron Trump, when he saw the image on TV, thought it was real and ended up screaming for his mother. Feel terrible for that kid, what he must be going through, especially with his dad being president and everyone in the country seemingly hating him. You gotta feel bad for Trump's kids. Kathy Griffin apologized, but then her lawyer tweeted out this. Earlier this week, Miss Griffin released a controversial photograph of herself posing with a faux bloody mask of Donald Trump's face. Miss Griffin and Miss Bloom will explain the true motivation behind the image and respond to the bullying from the Trump family that she has endured. Okay, so she's being bullied by the Trump family because of something she did. Okay, now we see how it works. And that's how the left operates. That's how leftists, let's differentiate between that. That's how the leftists operate. There's a difference between the moderate American and the leftist, right? Okay, Kathy Griffin, leftist. And that's how they operate. They get called out and then they play victim. She lost her gig. I mean, she lost her gig for the New Year's Eve, the New Year's Eve celebration. I guess that's something. Americans are tired of this. This is the reason Trump won, this kind of behavior. Leftists keep this crap up. He's going to win again in 2020. If that's what you want, fine. Anyway, leading out the show today, we've got a new piece from one of the artists that make our bumper music. This is a piece by Home, and the piece is called All at Once.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network, We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.